Evolution is the cornerstone of modern biology. It unites all the fields of biology under one theoretical umbrella. Evolution is the biological model for the history of life on Earth. While some consider evolution to be equivalent to atheism, Biologos sees evolution as a description of how God created all life. Evolution refers to descent with modification. From the chemical evolution, we understand that life originated from cytoplasm and cell type. We need to understand how the complex living beings originated from primitive microorganisms. Through ages, we have seen that offsprings of each living being have some changes from one another generation to another according to necessities which lead to the basis of new species. So, we can say that development of every living beings have occurred sometimes from microorganisms with gradual, slow and sequential changes. This is referred to as organic evolution. It hence means a gradual and slow sequential change or development in prehistoric time from simple pre-existing minute organisms that led to the present day complex and developed type of living beings. The significance of organic evolutionary concept is based on the fact that environmental conditions in nature are unstable and ever changing. All the living beings have an inherent characteristics of changing according to the changing environmental conditions, that is, it has adaptability. This means that species are unstable and ever changing. The ancestral species were simplest than the present day species. The history of concept of evolution came from many periods in the BC era. One of them were given by Empedocles, also called father of evolutionary idea. He believed in spontaneous creations as the explanation of the origin of life, but that nature does not produce the lower and higher forms simultaneously or without an effort. Another theory was propounded by Aristotle, who observed similarity in different forms of life and found relationship in between them and attributed all evolutionary changes to natural causes. Then Lamarck's theory or Lamarckism or theory of use and disuse of organs was postulated by Jean-Baptiste de Lamarck. According to this theory, if an organism develops certain changes during the course of life in order to adapt to its environment, those changes are inherited. Later, Lamarckism explained that the acquired characters that become incorporated in the genotype are inheritable and accumulate generation after generation, leading to the evolution of new species. Darwin's theory or Darwinism by Charles Robert was propounded by Darwin, which widely believed that all life is related and has descended from a common ancestor. According to him, the struggle for existence led to the survival of the fittest by the process of natural selection, which helps in the origin of new species. Though Darwinism was much effective and acceptable, but some scientists have criticized it. According to the critics, Darwin could not explain the cause and origin of variation. Scientists also gave examples of excessive growth beyond limit of usefulness, bringing about extinction, such as antlers of Irish elks. Darwin could not differentiate the variations transmitted from generation to generation. Later, the concept of neo-Darwinism was introduced that referred to the integration of Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection with mutation. It has been one of the most significant overall developments in evolutionary biology since the time of Darwin. De Vries, Weizmann, Mendel and other scientists have supported the concept of neo-Darwinism. According to Neo-Darwinism, the origin of organism and organic evolution is based on the fact that adaptations result from multiple forces and natural selection is one of these forces. They believed that characters are not inherited as such, but there are character determiners which control development. The ultimate character will result due to the interaction among the determiners, the activity of the organism and the environment during development. This concept was incomplete due to the missing information later supplied by geneticists in the 20th century. Therefore, according to Neo-Darwinism, the organic evolution is not on account of only one factor, but many factors together that brought about bio-evolutionary changes. In a nutshell, as random genetic mutations occur within an organism's genetic code, the beneficial mutations are preserved because they aid survival through a process known as natural selection. These beneficial mutations are passed on to the next generation. Over time, beneficial mutations accumulate and the result is an entirely different organism. This theory gives the idea that new species are formed from the sudden and unexpected emergence of alterations in their defining traits. The theory was advanced at the beginning of the 20th century by Dutch botanist and geneticist Hugo de Vries in his mutations theory. It joined two seemingly opposite traditions of evolutionary thought. Its practitioners, often referred to as mutationists, accepted the saltationists' theory, which states that new species are produced rapidly through discontinuous transformations. This theory contradicts Darwinism, which believed that species evolved through gradual accumulation of variation over past epochs. It explained that objection rose against Darwin's natural selection theory. De Vries gave importance to mutations in causing variations. Mutation refers to all changes occurring in the hereditary constitution of the body of an organism which leads to variation. In the second half of 20th century, considerable amount of further work on frequency, nature, spectrum and size of mutations was undertaken. The adaptive value of different mutations was also studied and their usefulness for the organisms and the mankind was evaluated. Mutationists believed in Darwinian line that all differentiation is for the good of the species, which however differed from the saltationists' idea that some organismic variations are inherently undesirable. They also believed that more variations provided better opportunities for adaptation to a variable environment. On the basis of observations, Hugo de Vries put forward a theory of evolution called the mutation theory. He first studied mutation in primrose or Ornithera lamarckiana. After studying through generations by crossing the wild plant, he observed variation and found that some of these characters were inherited and were so divergent that the plants were later treated as new species. Later, Morgan, in his experiment with fruit fly or Drosophila melanogaster, observed 50 different mutations in them. The mutation theory states that evolution is a jerky process where new varieties and species are formed by mutation that function as raw material of evolution. The salient features of mutation theory are: gene mutations or discontinuous variations are the raw material of evolution. Mutations are large and appear all of a sudden. They become operational immediately and always occur in nature. Unlike Darwin's continuous variations or fluctuations, mutations do not revolve around the mean or normal character of the species. The same type of mutations can appear in a number of individuals of a species. Mutations are inheritable and can be both useful and harmful in the organism. Mutation appear in all conceivable directions and is indefinite. Useful mutations are selected by nature. Lethal mutations are eliminated. However, useless and less harmful ones can persist in the progeny. Accumulation of variations produces new species. Sometimes a new species is produced from a single mutation. Evolution is a jerky and discontinuous process. Natural selection effects the mutation. Variations due to rearrangement of genes during sexual reproduction. Mendel, through his experiments, have proved that the characters of organisms depend on the random assortment and recombination in the hereditary factors which develops in offsprings by sexual reproduction. Variation due to mutation. New species origin due to changes in the genes which develops the changes in heritable characters. These developed sudden changes in genes and chromosomes are called mutation. Development of bio-evolutionary changes. Fisher has suggested that due to natural selection, more useful genes are dominant over the less useful genes. In nature, mutation occur at a definite rate called mutation pressure, and the rate at which natural selection occur is called selection pressure. Natural selection, mutations, heredity and other factors altogether produce less evolved changes. Variation can be brought about by structural changes in chromosomes or due to changes at the genic level, that is, either chromosomal mutation or gene mutation. Hugo de Vries thought that mutation would always involve bigger and sudden changes. We now know that changes due to single mutation may vary from major changes to minute ones. If mutations bring major changes, it is called systemic macromutation, and the latter are called micromutation. The majority of cases, the latter are important than the former in evolution process because minute changes can help the organism to adjust in the new environmental conditions. The mutation theory discards the concept of natural selection. Criticism of mutation theory. Some objections were raised against this theory, such as the plant Inothera lamarckiana selected for the study is a hybrid plant and not homogametic plant. Hence, mutation which is specific is generally not found in such organisms. Generally, some mutations are harmful, so mutant cannot survive for long period, leading to a possibility of extinction of organisms. Mutation cannot explain the continuity and discontinuity in between organisms. Moreover, mutation alone cannot account for evolution. The origin of birds flying over the small islands in the oceans cannot be explained by mutation. It is now clear that mutations play a very important role in evolution, but is not the only force working for organic evolution. Keeping this in mind, a modern synthetic theory of evolution was proposed and universally accepted. The modern synthetic theory of evolution is the result of the work of a number of scientists, namely Dobzhansky, Fisher, Haldane, Smallright, Ernst Mayr and Stebbins. Stebbins, in his book Process of Organic Evolution, discussed the synthetic theory of evolution. While the modern synthesis remains the prevailing paradigm of evolutionary biology, in recent years it has both been expanded and challenged as a result of new developments in evolutionary theory. It includes the following factors: gene mutation, variation, heredity, natural selection, isolation. In addition, three more accessory factors affect the working of these five basic factors. These are migration of individuals from one population to another, as well as hybridization between races or closely related species or genera. Both increase the amount of genetic variability available to a population. The effects of chance acting on small populations may alter the way in which natural selection guides the course of evolution. According to this theory, organisms are regulated by genes which are located in chromosomes. The changes occurring in genes and chromosomes produces changes in the characters of the organism. If the changes occur in the germplasm, then it is inherited in the next generation. Useful gene combinations help in the selection of organisms. Mutation, genetic recombination and natural selection are most important in all cases of individual, and no distinction should be made between them in all respect of their relative importance. Evolution has been called the cornerstone of biology, and for good reasons. Evolutionary explanations pervade all fields in biology and bring them together under one theoretical umbrella. We know from microevolutionary theory that natural selection should optimize the existing genetic variation in a population to maximize reproductive success. Mutation is a change in the sequence of an organism's DNA and can be caused by high energy sources such as radiation or by chemicals in the environment. They can also appear spontaneously during the replication of DNA. In some mutations, one base pair is changed and is most common, called point substitution. Chromosomal aberrations are larger scaled mutations that occur during meiosis in unequal crossing over events, slippage during DNA recombination, or due to the activities of transposable events. Gene and even whole chromosomes can be substituted, duplicated or deleted due to these errors. Mutations can have range of effects. A mutation that occurs in body cells that are not passed along to the subsequent generations is a somatic mutation. A mutation that occurs in a gamete or in a cell that gives rise to gametes are spatial because they impact the next generation and may not affect the adult at all. Such changes are called germline mutations because they occur in a cell used in reproduction, giving the change a chance to become more numerous over time. If the mutation has a deleterious effect on the phenotype of the offspring, the mutation is referred to as a genetic disorder. Alternately, if the mutation has a positive effect on the fitness of the offspring, it is called an adaptation. Thus, all mutations that affect the fitness of future generations are agents of evolution. They can often be harmful. Others have little or no detrimental effect, while sometimes, although very rarely, the change in DNA sequence may even turn out to be beneficial to the organism. Mutations are essential to evolution. Every genetic feature in every organism was initially the result of mutation. The new genetic variant spreads via reproduction, and differential reproduction is a defining aspect of evolution. It is easy to understand how a mutation that allows an organism to feed, grow or reproduce more effectively could cause the mutant allele to become more abundant over time. Soon the population may be quite ecologically or physiologically different from the original population that lacked the adaptation. Even deleterious mutations can cause evolutionary changes, especially in small populations, by removing individuals that might be carrying adaptive alleles at other genes. A single mutation can have large effect, but in many cases, evolutionary change is based on the accumulation of many mutations with small effects. Mutational effect can be beneficial, harmful or neutral depending on their context or location. Most non-neutral mutations are deleterious. In general, the more base pairs they are affected by a mutation, the larger is the effect of mutation, and the larger the mutation's probability of being deleterious. Mutation occurs frequently in nature. There are many kinds of mutation. A point mutation is a mutation in which one letter of the genetic code is changed to another. Lengths of DNA can also be deleted or inserted in a gene. These are also mutations. Finally, genes or parts of genes can become inverted or duplicated. Typical rates of mutations are between 10 to the power of 10 and 10 to the power of 12 mutations per base pair of DNA per generation. Most mutations are thought to be neutral with regards to fitness. Only a small portion of the genome of eukaryotes contains coding segments, and although some non-coding DNA is involved in gene regulation or other cellular functions, it is probable that most base changes would have no fitness consequence. Most mutations that have any phenotype effect are deleterious. Mutations that result in amino acid substitutions can result the shape of a protein, potentially changing or eliminating its function. This can lead to inadequacies in biochemical pathways or interfere with the process of development. Only a very small percentage of mutations are beneficial. The ratio of neutral to deleterious to beneficial mutations is unknown and probably varies with respect to details of the locus in question and environment. Mutations are usually random and bring about changes in well-adapted genotype which might be harmful and in due course rejected by natural selection. However, several mutations in Drosophila have shown that it enables them to withstand poisonous substances and make several crops resistant to different diseases. Mutation limits the rate of evolution. The rate of evolution can be expressed in terms of nucleotide substitutions in a lineage per generation. Substitution is the replacement of an allele by another in a population. However, certain mutation need not be limiting over short span of time. The rate of evolution expressed above is given as a steady state equation. It assumes the system is at equilibrium. Giving the time frame for a single mutant to fix, it is unclear if populations are ever at equilibrium. A change in environment can cause previously neutral alleles to have selective values in the short term. Evolution can run on stored variations and thus is independent rate of mutation. Other mechanisms can also contribute selectable variations. Most of the mutations are never lethal. The mutations occurring in only one amino acid of peptide chain do not cause change in the genotype and are known as silent mutations. Recombination creates new combinations of alleles by joining sequences with separate microevolutionary histories within a population. Gene flow can also supply the gene pool with variants resulting from mutation. According to Beadle and Tatum, chemical and physical forces play important role in mutation. The accumulation of slight mutations to saliva that is responsible for snake venom and therefore much of snake evolution. Natural selection in some ancestral snakes has favored enzyme with increasingly more aggressive properties, for the mutation themselves have been random, creating different venoms in different groups of snakes. Snake venom are actually a cocktail of different proteins with different effects. So, genetically related species have a different mixture from other venomous snake families. As mutations accumulated through generations, the diversity of species increased over time. Although the history of many species have been affected by the gradual accumulation of tiny point mutations, sometimes evolution works much more quickly. Several types of organisms have an ancestor that failed to undergo meiosis correctly prior to sexual reproduction, resulting in a total duplication of every chromosome pair. Such a process created an instant speciation event in the grey tree frog of North America. The consequence of doubling the genome size in plant is often abnormally large seeds or fruits, a trait that can be of distinct advantage if we are flowering plant. Most cereals that humans eat have enormous seeds compared to other grasses, and this is often due to genomic duplications that occurred in the ancestor of modern rice and wheat. Because of the mistake occurred in reproductive organs was successfully passed on to future generations. Humans themselves have mimicked this process by interbreeding individual plants with largest fruits and seeds in the process of artificial selection, creating many of our modern agricultural crop strains. The idea of evolution by natural selection requires differential survival due to some individuals having greater evolutionary fitness. Whether that fitness is affected by genetic disorders, venomous saliva, or enlarged offsprings, heritable variations can only arise by mutation. Evolution is simply not possible without random genetic change for its raw material. Effects of mutation. Genetic drift. Change in the gene pool of a population due to chance. The smaller population, the more impact the genetic drift likely will have. Gene flow. The gain or loss of alleles from a population by the movement of individuals or gametes into or out of the population. Natural selection. Different success in reproduction by different phenotypes resulting from interactions with the environment. It helps in identifying the difference between the organs which are no longer in use. It helps to understand the primordial stages of the organs as well as the selective values of the organisms. It also helps in understanding the existence of connecting links. Mutations are sudden and large, and some may occur slowly. Some mutations are so very minute or fine, so it is very difficult to notice them. Some mutations modify the nutritional requirement of organism like neurospora. The process of mutation cannot express the normal process of development or evolution, neither it can explain the causes of discontinuity in between the animals. Mutation is only an alternative of natural selection. Sometimes mutation leads to extinction of species instead of development of new ones. The fundamental of evolution and population ecology are integral part of environmental science. Natural selection, speciation, extinction help determine Earth's biodiversity. Understanding how ecological processes function at population level is crucial to protecting biodiversity. The natural environmental condition provides basic foundation of species diversity among the various living organisms that result in evolution through the process of natural selection. New species of the organisms develops on account of natural selection and mutation. The latest theory suggests that variation and mutation in the interbreeding of individuals are the raw materials of organic evolution. The presence or occurrence of mutation in the body of organism by the effect of environmental and physiological factors occur through the gametes or affect the gametes. They are inherited from one generation to the other. After series of generations, they develop variations which are different from their ancestors and so form new species. So, mutations play an important role in the organic evolution. Biological evolution refers to cumulative changes that occur in a population over time. These changes are produced at the genetic level as organisms' genes mutate and or recombine in different ways during reproduction and are passed on to future generations. Sometimes individuals inherit new characteristics that give them a survival and reproductive advantage in their local environments. These characteristics tend to increase in frequency in the population, while those that are disadvantageous decrease in frequency. This process of differential survival and reproduction is known as natural selection.